My name is Carl. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tictail. Um, and I have lost my voice, so I'm sorry about that. I've been screaming too much in the office, I guess. Tictail is an e-commerce company. We started 2012 in Stockholm. I'm from Sweden, as you can hear. We've since then opened up an office in New York. We're a Series B stage company, about 60 employees. Have raised just north of $30 million from great international investors who really support us. And are slides moving for you guys? Okay, here we go. And now the presentation can begin. I wanted to share with you our journey and some of the learnings we've had as we've transformed our business to become more and more. Started off very much as a business-to-business offering, and have over the years, the 4 years or so we've been around, transferred to become more and more of a marketplace business. And hopefully some of those learnings will be applicable to anyone in the crowd or be interesting in some way. If you're working at a marketplace business, if you're considering to build a marketplace or in the process of building a marketplace, I think we've all kind of experienced the chicken or egg problem, where it's like, what do I go for after first? Do I need supply or demand? And how do I go about these two things? If you look across the market at like the world's greatest marketplace businesses, companies like Uber, Airbnb, or Shutterstock, what you'll find is that they all kind of target the demand side first. They talk to the consumer. They go after the people that are holding the money, right? But before you get to that point, for you to ever get any consumers, you of course need something for them to buy. And today I wanted to talk about a strategy to go about that and how you can get to that point where you find that initial demand. And it's really about sort of creating a really, really solid, fantastic single-player experience for the supply side, so that they find value from your service before there are even any customers there. And the theme of this presentation was actually inspired by a blog post written by a person much smarter than myself called Chris Dixon, who wrote this blog post a year and a half ago or so called "Come for the Tool and Stay for the Network," where he basically outlined this popular become a marketplace strategy, kind of. And he brought up this one example in that blog post that I want to sort of like kick things off with. And he talked about Instagram. So when Instagram launched in September 2010, of course there weren't any people there yet. It wasn't the sort of social network that we all love and enjoy today, where you can follow your friends, influencers, brands, and engage with them in an interesting way. When Instagram launched, there was no one there. But the way they went about it was in this really clever way, where they took a well-understood problem, a purpose that people were really already looking for, and they commoditized that part of the product. They took editing photos on your phone and applying cool filters to those photos, and they made that free. And at this point, in this early stage of their life, they weren't competing with Twitter or Facebook or anyone else. They were competing with Hipstamatic. They took this thing that a very successful company had already had on the market for quite a few years, that was very popular, and they made that service free. And in the beginning, in the initial days, people would come to Instagram, they would use the service to edit their photos, to apply these cool filters, but ultimately they would go on and publish these photos on other sites. They would publish them on Twitter and Facebook, and that was really where the action was, right? But as more and more people were drawn to this tool, which was what it was, they also published their photos to the Instagram feed. And slowly but surely, as they were gaining traction for this tool, that was really where most of the value for the users came. And that was really the point when Instagram transitioned from a tool to a network. Our story at Tictail is a very similar one. When we launched our product in May 2012, we launched a super simple way for up-and-coming designers and entrepreneurs to create a beautiful online store in minutes from their desktop or from their phone. We enabled brand owners to create this great custom storefront in a matter of minutes, right? We called it the Tumblr for e-commerce, and we attracted brands from all over the world, brands like the Transparent Speaker, this really successful Kickstarter campaign that graduated and used Tictail as sort of like their ongoing e-commerce strategy. jewelry designers like Cornelia Webb that started her business on our platform and has since then grown to become this household name almost, being worn and endorsed by different celebrities like Rihanna. And we went from sort of like one store on the platform to 1,000 stores, 10,000 stores, 100,000 stores, all by taking this widely known problem. Brands want their own e-commerce site and commoditizing that product, making it free for anyone and everyone to use. And in this process, we found ourselves to become the home to the world's greatest independent brands, really attracting all of these really cool emerging designers from all over the world, designers from more than 150 countries. And with them came millions of products. All of a sudden, we had access to this unique inventory of products you couldn't find anywhere else. And we said that if our mission as a company is not to be an e-commerce platform, but it's really to empower the self-made entrepreneur and help them become successful, then what better way for us to accomplish this mission than to actually bring customers to their door? So we took all of this inventory across all of the stores on our platform, and we transformed ourselves from being a tool to becoming a marketplace. Today, when you go to Tictail.com, there's not a big splash page asking you to create a free online store. It's really a solid consumer offering where you're allowed to sort of browse and discover products, local designers and brands, and shop them in sort of a single destination. And the way we view the world is that, of course, as a network, we're not competing on a feature-by-feature basis as we would have been if we were simply a tool. We're really sort of like, our differentiation, our value must come from the relationships, the connections that we are able to create through our platform. So when we think about Tictail and shaping it into a marketplace, it's truly a mobile-first destination that's built around social, where you can chat with brand owners, you can like products, follow stores, and create your own sort of profile. Now, the question then becomes like, why, like if you have a thriving storefront creator and you have this great tool that's obviously finding a lot of like traction in the market that a lot of customers are using, then why make your business any more complex than it already is? Why become a marketplace? I'm glad you asked. For us, I mean, on one side, there were sort of reasons that were specific to us. We saw a gap in the market. On the marketplace side, Etsy does a great job on handmade goods. But really, when it comes to brands that have graduated from the kitchen table that want to turn their hobby into a real business, there were few marketplaces for them to go on to. And for us, as individuals, as consumers, to sort of like be able to discover these emerging brands, we didn't want to go to Amazon to find like the commoditized goods, and Etsy felt a bit crafty for us. But on a broader view, on sort of a more high-level picture, there are some sort of like given advantages to being a marketplace or a network rather than a simple tool or back-end solution. Marketplaces benefit from sort of winner-takes-all dynamics. And the idea is that once a network starts growing, it creates this flywheel where more customers are generating more supply that's generating more customers. And as that sort of like dynamic continues and the marketplace becomes dominant, it will ultimately control the entire market until the conditions in that market are changed. And this kind of leads to this really, really interesting dynamic where supply and demand follow each other. And then if you're able to bring customers to someone's door, you're not just providing a service that's very easy to price. You're providing this intangible value, and you can charge a far higher transaction fee per customer you bring to the door. You could summarize this kind of by saying that a successful marketplace is, of course, extremely difficult to disrupt because of all of these dynamics. But for these reasons, it's also, unfortunately, really difficult to build. When I thought about our journey towards this goal and some of the things that I think have helped us get us there, I came up with like 3 different sort of building blocks that I wanted to share. First of all, I think it's important that there's a product overlap. Like I'm not trying to pitch anyone here to pivot their company and completely change what you're doing. You kind of want the things that you have been investing in, the things that you've been developing for the past few years, to really help drive towards that new long-term vision. In the case of Instagram, a core part of their service, of their experience, is still to edit photos, to have these filters, and to make your photos look stunning. In the same way, a core part for our service are the same features that we have offered since day one. It's order management, the ability to chat with your customers, to follow stores. Second, I think it's important that your service, the business that you're building, has a customer overlap. The idea is that if your customer's customer are the same, then there's a benefit. There are tons and tons of other advantages that will come to the company. By aggregating content into one single destination, you benefit massively from SEO. You can increase conversion rates by adding the trust signals that come with being this sort of like more established, well-known player in the market. You can increase repeat by having a more sophisticated approach to CRM. And there's tons of advantages to this, but they kind of come as you are able to bring all the content together and really leverage your scale. As a sort of like final part of this presentation, I thought it would be interesting to just take a look at what could this look like, what could this approach look like for some other companies. So before coming here, I just looked at like what is the tool set that we use in our company at Tictail today, and if they would apply this strategy to their business, what could that look like? And hopefully one of these is a good idea. Most of them are probably just like random thoughts. Should be good. The first one that we use is Greenhouse, which is this really incredible applicant tracking system. So it's basically a simple way for you to sort of like create job postings, handle inbound applications, and also track them through the entire interview process and the follow-ups and so forth. Some of the greatest companies in the world, I think, use this platform, companies like Uber or Pinterest. And you have to think that when you look at companies like this, like a Pinterest or an Uber, and they go out to hire a product manager or a data scientist, a designer or an engineer, that a lot of the people that they're going after are probably like similar talent. There's a lot of like customer overlap, as we talked about before. And why don't Greenhouse just sort of like flip their business and they completely commoditize the applicant tracking system and just turn themselves into a marketplace where we can go and apply for these jobs across all of these great companies, and they would work on a placement fee basis instead. My second example, which is of the three examples I'm going to present, probably the furthest stretch I have here, is Expensify. Expensify is another great tool that we use, which is basically how we create expense reports. So when employees in our company are out traveling and they buy things for the company, they basically just take a photo of the receipt, upload it to Expensify, and then we pay it out with their next salary. Now, Expensify, they're the home to tons and tons of SMBs. So they basically have like a good insight into how so many small companies, specifically in the startup space, spend their money. Now, if Expensify would just look at all of these expenses across the board, they would probably see a few things where there's tons of overlap, multiple vendors that are using the same services. And then they would also see multiple vendors that are using similar services but not the same. What if Expensify would go to these third-party companies and basically say, hey, in our customer base, we have 30% of our users that are already customers of your product. What if we can offer you direct exposure to the remaining 70% and help them like start using your product, your services? And basically, Expensify would be this destination where companies like ours, we manage our costs, our receipts, but we can also sort of find ways to optimize our costs by understanding which services we use and which services that we could get at a better rate. So Expensify, run your business at a lower cost. Final example, eShares. So this is as much a sort of like sales pitch for these companies as it is presentation from my side. eShares is a great company as well. I'm really excited about using eShares, and I think every small business and startup should be using them as well. It's a platform basically to handle your entire cap table, handle secondary sales, stock options, everything that is basically stock related in a private company. Now, the way the markets are looking today, with private companies staying private for a far longer time period, and a general hype around the startup ecosystem in general, and more people wanting to get involved with startups, ranging all the way from seed stage, Series A, Series B, and upwards. Wouldn't it be interesting if eShares, that already does a great job of managing all of these companies' shares and cap tables, would also create this marketplace, this platform, where people like us could go in and we could trade on secondary sales and open up the market for secondary sales in companies where investors or early employees want to sort of like offload some of their shares to take their next step in their career. So eShares, the world's leading equity trading platform for private companies. Now, this was my sort of like general summary of like how some companies, business-to-business companies, could apply a sort of tool to network strategy to their own businesses. I hope some of these things were relevant to you. If I could end on one note, it's if you have any feedback on this presentation, please email me at carl@tictail.com, and please do check out our marketplace. Thank you so much.